So we have finally re- renewed or I get
Come back?
resumed. Yeah, resumed.
Resumed.
Yeah, resumed our podcast series. Let's talk. And I am co-hosting with Mackenzie here. Hello again.
Hello.
Good to see you after quite a bit.
I
And
know. Missed you.
yeah, it's been quite a month where I was traveling in South Korea. But I think I finally came back from the old jet lag and everything, so I finally got together to just, I don't know, sit down and do a bit of a talk with you. So
Yeah.
I appreciate any of you who would be watching live or catching this on recording later on. Today, I wanted to have just a general conversation between SketchUp and Revit. And since we both know SketchUp a little bit, but we also know Revit a little bit as well. So I wanted to talk about their each characteristics, a bit more of a comparison, as well as some interoperability piece, how to go in between them. And there are some things that are relatively new um, in the uh, in the versions of both software that are not as known to the world. So I wanted to just kind of talk about some best practices or tips and tricks and such. So hence why we just kind of picked this topic. But as always, as the conversation goes on, if anyone leaves a chat and some question or anything like that, I am happy to answer those things. And feel free to chip in, and Mackenzie as well, just to if you have any questions. I'm sorry, if you have any questions or any thoughts, feel free to ask as well. And I just want this to be a bit of a casual and fluid conversation. So, with that, I wanted to also introduce our sponsor for this segment here. So, as what we did last time on the podcast, Mackenzie's got a beautiful microphone there. It's from Fifine, and I believe the model name is K688, which is the exact same microphone that I have. She has a white version. Oh, she even has a box for it. That's awesome.
Box.
That's awesome. And she's got K688CT, which includes the boom arm that she has. And it's a matching white to look beautiful in her
My very
environment.
white
Yeah,
room.
in your very white room, and I got the black version, and it matches my very black. Hey, look, we matched as well.
Honestly, we really do. Why do
we
we keep
planned,
doing this?
we planned for this,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. I put on my blue hat to match your lamp. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So there we are. So yeah, and it honestly it sounds great, and you get to monitor the sound as well. That's what I'm hearing through my headset, and so is she. So we are able to monitor our voice and make sure my coughs are actually outside of the pickup, and make sure the sound's good. And it brings this warm podcasty tone, and I've been loving it. So you'll hear our voices through this microphone throughout, and you get to hear its quality. So, with that, let's go ahead and talk about our main topic. I'm gonna start sharing my screen to get everything started. Okay. So I made this picture with the world of SketchUp and Revit somewhat colliding, and I think it fits quite a bit.
It's literally perfect.
Yeah, it's I often call it the parallel universe of SketchUp and Revit, and uh, I must mention, there are some people who feels very strongly about SketchUp. There are some people who feels very strongly about Revit, but at the end of the day, we're just gonna have to pick up a tool that works for the task. Some one of which would be more expensive than the other, one of which may be harder to learn, one of which would be a bit more difficult to use in certain case scenarios,
Mhm.
but you're just going to have to use what your client demands and just understand the differences and the strongest suit of the tool for you to carry on your task and do and carry out your task efficiently. So, in general, kind of understanding, SketchUp comes from more of loose, sketchy kind of environment, whereas in Revit, I feel a lot of our things are a bit more limited. I'm trying to use my words carefully here,
Yeah.
but also parametric. So it has a much bigger focus on BIM element, building information management. So it has a bit more than just 3D element or what meets the eye. It has a lot of information that you can create schedule from or quantify or even to have a lot of other information that goes with it so that you can have this building information. Whereas SketchUp touches on it, but its
Mhm.
strong suit is more visual. It's more kind of sketchy upness, where
Yeah.
you are able to generate geometry in a more quicker as well as having a bit more better visual feedback as you model is its main focus. So
Mm.
depending on your task, you just have to pick up the right tool for your task. And some client may just straight up say, I want everything to be done on SketchUp. I want everything to be done on Revit. Then you just
Mhm.
gotta do it. But if you're given choice, then you've got to know your tool to be able to pick up the right tool and carry out your task. Um, any
Well
thoughts on
described.
that? Any
Uh,
thoughts on that?
I think you nailed the or hit the nail on the head. I do think the word that kept coming to mind for Revit was structure. Like it's very structured. I think the way that the formatting is makes the user think in like logical terms. Whereas in SketchUp, you don't have to always think in logical terms. You can think kind of freely and you can do a little bit more high creativity moments. So I think that's my experience with both of them too. Is SketchUp was always a place where I got to see things a little bit quicker and get to play a little bit more. And Revit was where I had to put on my like logic hat and really work at like how is this going to work and how is it actually going to operate.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and also they have different kind of categories of
Mhm.
users as well. Revit is part of Autodesk, and
Mhm.
Autodesk does a lot more other things than just Revit, such as AutoCAD, and they have other a bit more 3D geometry generating software such as Maya, 3D Max, and a lot more focus on perhaps even 3D animations and such. And they have a huge focus on the fusion or the production-based type of design, whereas SketchUp has a little bit of focus on, like, say, woodworking and furniture design, and they do quite of that, as well as even covering as large as like urban planning and some landscape designs and landscape architecture as well. So they have different landscape of users in general. So whenever I attend the SketchUp conference, there's different type of folks
Mhm.
than whenever I attend Autodesk University, where there's a lot of people. Like I mean, a lot of people. So
much
uh,
much bigger program because it has so many
yeah,
umbrella
yeah,
programs, I think. So it makes sense.
yeah. That's absolutely true. So
Mm.
it's two different tool and two different characteristics, but in the world of architecture, we actually kind of headbutt each other a lot of times. But I wanna bring a bit more. I don't know. How do I say? It's not fighting each other, maybe we can all come together and bring our
Yeah.
workflow easier and
Mhm.
better. Is sort of my ultimate goal. And you just have the multi-universe or parallel universe where everything just kind of goes on, but you get to maintain both of the world maybe, and occasionally you have a bit of crossover, import to each other, export to each other, and see how it can kind of work together
Mhm.
in general. So I have another visual that I wanted to show you, which is this one here. So whether you agree or not, this is general kind of workflow that I have seen in the industry, and in larger firms, smaller firms, it kind of tends to move this way because of each
Mhm.
characteristics. So first of all, in our design workflow, everything goes from maybe concept, schematic design, and then design development, and then it eventually moves on to construction documents and bidding. And then we go into construction admin phase and then get the building done. And then there may be a bit more task after this, after the life of construction and building life. And building information management definitely feeds into that a bit further as well. But I am just kind of focusing on these aspects that I'm currently showing in here. But you can kind of see this background here where the general workflow is from SketchUp side to Revit. Just keep that in your head for a bit. So generally things move from SketchUp to Revit is the general practice that I have seen. Um, Price wise, Revit is 10 times more expensive than SketchUp. So
Mhm.
uh, it's going from cheaper software to more expensive software, but
Mhm.
that's just the price wise. But we want to put that aside and actually just focus on its functionality in what it does.
Yeah.
SketchUp is just great at doing quick succession of designing, sketching, and rough ideas of what's happening. And
Mhm.
even before schematic design, like a concept stage or a feasibility stage, SketchUp's strong suit is there. So when they are doing schematic design or perhaps concepts and such, they do a lot of those in SketchUp. And whilst that is happening in a very large scale models or buildings, I have seen cases where they do floor plan studies simultaneously because, as you know, in if you were to do room assignment for a certain type of shape, like this is not no ceilings, nothing, but you're in multiple levels. Just imagine like mixed use high rise building or very large scale buildings with a lot of units in there, say a hotel or residential mixed use buildings. You get a lot of rooms, and then you get if you once you assign rooms, then Revit is great at quantifying those things. So it can highlight how many square footages in this level, how many square footage of this kind of unit, how many square footage of that kind of unit, and it is able to quantify. Therefore, have better conversation with your client, saying, well, you know what, we need two-bedroom units here and we need three-bedroom units there, and you can quantify those things a lot easier and represent on plans a lot quicker on Revit side, even when the concepts are developing. But that is just general programming and blocking of the programming at that stage. And SketchUp can move on doing some facade studies, or how are we going to block up all of these blocks that are being generated, and how are we going to configure those things in general master plan? How are we going to do that? Those are much easier to be done on SketchUp side. So generally, the design is moving on SketchUp side. However, some of quantifying and some of floor plan studies may be done on Revit side. That's why I've got
Mhm.
this both side arrow drawn on it, so it's going to feed into each other.
Yeah.
So whilst the general movement is happening from SketchUp to Revit side, you have this instance of small exchange of information that's happening from both Revit and
Mm-hmm.
SketchUp. So after the design development, as it moves on to construction document, generally that's the point where everything just kind of moves on to Revit side. I'll touch on how to go from here to here, but generally, Revit is not too great at taking all the information and translating it. So, unfortunately, you know this and you've done this in the practice before. When you're handed over a SketchUp file that's been agreed on design
Mm-hmm.
development stage, you look at that SketchUp model and you're literally just kind of tracing it to draw
Yeah.
your Revit model. And you can import, but your imported elements from SketchUp, unfortunately, is not really a usable geometry on Revit side. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people already figured this out, and that's pretty common practice where they just draw on top and trace. And trying to make this work takes more time than just
Mm-hmm.
drawing it yourself. So Revit native models and Revit native elements are plays a lot nicer than the foreign objects that are coming from either SketchUp or CAD or whatever it may be. So that's going to happen, and the general transition happens there as you do construction documents. And unfortunately, SketchUp is not great at construction documents. It has something called layout, which is meant for construction documents of SketchUp, and there's beautiful drawings that are made from layout in SketchUp
Mm-hmm.
as well. But I'm just kind of saying this in very, very big scale drawings, especially, but also in general, I feel construction documents are a bit easier on Revit side. Again, I'm going to put finances aside, but in general, construction documents are easier on Revit because it has more focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess you just have to pick your poison in that in there. But generally, people do construction documents in Revit because of those purposes. But
Yeah.
whilst that is going on, there are other instances that are happening. So first one is design studies. So whilst the general construction document is going on, you're trying to figure out your facade, or in retail design, it'll be like a storefront, or in mixed use building, your entrance design, or some master plan of like landscaping that is going on in front of the building. Doing landscape design on Revit is a nightmare.
Yeah.
um, yeah, do you assign your landscape into a floor, or do you do it into terrain?
Yeah.
That's where the
Yeah.
conversation starts. It's just not meant for it. So
No.
it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to find the exact tree that you want in there.
Ugh.
It's a lot of fun. If
That's a
you
way to
want,
describe it.
yeah, if you want a lot of problem solving, if that's
Yeah.
what you
You
enjoy,
maybe want a crashed model.
yes, that's where you can take it to. But
Mm-hmm.
also, the other things happen. Oh, in a very large building, in like a shopping mall or entertainment center or large scale type of building, I've also seen different roof designs that go on this massive building. So whilst the building is being um, construction documented, it is doing. Some other people may do design studies on facade, roof, landscaping, that sort of thing going on, and it may actually happen in a master plan level as well. So if you have this massive master plan with multiple buildings that is being made, then construction documents of each building may happen, but SketchUp will kind of, because it is great at like landscape design and such, it is going to do master plan and actually plonk
Mm-hmm.
those things. So it needs to be able to take some of Revit model that gets developed and plunk into SketchUp side so that it is kind of dressed up. And assigning materials on Revit is just so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so
Mm-hmm.
so if you just want this building to be concrete looking, if you want this to be some brick looking or wooden
Yeah.
facade, then you can just assign those things a lot easier on SketchUp side.
Simple.
So You just take the geometry and dress it up on the SketchUp side. So you can kind of imagine how this kind of plays out when when the design studies are happening. So this is sort of the general workflow. And then whilst that is happening, we may feed some things from 3D Warehouse. So for those of you who's not aware what 3D Warehouse is, it's basically a giant family library. I'm speaking for Revit terms, Revit
Hmm.
folks, because 3D Warehouse, anyone who uses SketchUp will know what this is. But in Revit terms, this is a giant warehouse. There's Revit City. What was it?
Hmm.
BIM objects. There are
Hmm.
some libraries of families that you can download stuff.
Yeah, but
But
nothing compares to
yeah, the 3D
3D
warehouse
Warehouse.
is more user funded, and
Hmm.
yes, there are a lot of, let's say, not up to standards type of models there, but it is often good enough for you to get things going. And some of the things that I find on some of these repository of Revit families is that there's a lot of too much information. Like, I'm trying to get this specific type of, say, toilet. It just has so much model name and the links for the model and then the manufacturer's SKU number, and sometimes I don't want all of that. I just want a toilet looking thing to
Yeah,
occupy the space and show on the plan as
that
like
is
a,
around the same shape and size.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
anybody can tell it's a toilet. I don't really need to know exact model name. And yes, in the long run, you want that because you're doing it on building information management software. So you want quantifiable data and you want a data, but it takes time for me to adjust all of those
Hmm.
parameters, and that's what usually holds back Revit in terms of modeling because it just takes so much time to input all of those parameters. Whereas, like for example, geometry making. Now we're just kind of going back a little bit. Sorry, but geometry making in SketchUp, all you do is you just draw a rectangle and just push pull it up, and you now got a 3D object of this cube. In Revit, that's not the case. In Revit, you have to go into sketching mode, and well, first you got to decide: is it gonna be a wall? Is it going to be a floor? Is it gonna be a ceiling? Is it gonna be a roof? You got to decide, and
Yeah.
you can't come back once you make that decision. So
Yeah.
you've first need to think about what this is going to be, and then you got to go into sketch mode, and then also assign the correct plane where you're drawing it from. Are you drawing like this? Are you drawing like that?
Hmm.
What are you drawing? And you gotta assign the plane because you can't switch that easily either. So you gotta assign the floor, plane, rectangle. We finally got to the rectangle part. Once you do that, and then you've got to assign where's the base of that wall is, where's the base of that floor is, how thick the floor is, what's the makeup of that floor is, or what's the makeup of that wall is, and what is the layering that is happening on that wall, and
Yeah.
assign the top constraint and where how tall that is or where it is snapped to. All of that information needs to be put in before you can even have a cube or a geometry drawn on.
It's an exceptionally logical program. Like that's it just it wants you to think like an engineer. Like it's like your brain has to be like A plus B equals C. And SketchUp again is like C could come first, but you know what? We might throw a D in there and we might have a little sprinkle of a W, you know?
Hmm.
It'll still equal the same thing. And so, yeah, that's you did a great job of describing that because I was just like getting anxiety thinking about it because I've
Yeah.
done so many different components and it's very fun and very good and it's a lot more work.
Yes, but in the end, you have more information on Revit
Hmm.
side. Like you
Yeah.
already decided wall type, wall thickness, what the
Hmm.
material is gonna be. God, I hope that I have a correct material on the wall. But you've made more decisions as you draw, So you have more information to go back on. However, when concept and schematic design is sort of happening, you don't want all of that information input. That's why SketchUp is so great at kind of creating your concept and getting things done so that you get the general feel of it, not work out every single element and just develop further from it. Anyways, going back, so 3D Warehouse is able to give you some geometry that doesn't necessarily have all the model numbers, configure what manufacturer it is, or manufactured or design date of that specific model. Um, uh, you're not concerned about that. You're just trying to find a darn thing that looks like toilet on your plan, or it looks like a chair or table, or a sofa that looks like in a plan or representative of. I'm fine if it is looking like a cube. Often, if I have a cube in the middle and then a cube that is kind of stuck on top and down, then I'm gonna understand it as a tables and chairs. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But even to get to that level, I have to then make a family, assign a parameter, and I need to know how tall it is rather than rectangle and push pull. So
Yeah.
it's a lot harder, and 3D Warehouse just holds a lot of things in there, so you can just search up sofa, and if you find something that remotely looks like, then you can just bring that in to SketchUp side as a native thing,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just plunk that down and not worry about so much. Or there's also a way to bring that into Revit side or construction document side as a family. Then you are able to just plunk that down a lot easier than having a lot of these unnecessary and convoluted information into your model. Because
Yeah.
I rather not have the information than be wrong about the information that I put in. Because if I put a water fountain that I found online of a Revit family and I put it in, it's a wrong model, it's a wrong manufacturer, then I'm gonna be caught. And now I need to go ahead and delete those information and hope the best later on. But again, it's gonna be there, and some it's just we're gonna forget about it, and then someday the GC is gonna come and ask me, we can't find these stock. Well, no, I actually didn't want to have that specific model. I intended to be just water fountain and have this discussion later on, but I just left the information accident. It just happens all the time with the speed
Mm-hmm.
of designing and construction documentation. So if it is a rectangular thing that's stuck on the wall, and if I just tagged it as a water fountain, then everybody knows that somebody's intending this is a placeholder that's intended to be configured and specced out later on. But often that becomes a problem. Anyways, and then there's also another arrow that I have drawn, which is sales and marketing. So um, when construction docs are happening, your client may search out some of marketing material or sales or seek out for potential tenants.
Mm-hmm.
If it's this is like a mixed use or residential type, then you might want some brochure type of material, website, or even sometimes as a construction is a demolition is happening, and you're getting the site ready, you've got to have what do you call it, the barricades and the fence, and they
Mm-hmm.
often put up these sort of rough idea sketch onto the barricade, and that they do that sort of stuff. And because Revit is so great at renderings and visualization, because it's great at taking materials, no, no, it's not. SketchUp is a lot easier to do that and get a rough sketchy look or rendering
Mm-hmm.
visualization is a lot easier on SketchUp side. So you may output just the geometry, and then you start to basically color away your model into
Mm-hmm.
something that is suitable for visualization. And you've got other tools, rendering softwares to go on top of SketchUp that works really well, and that I have discussed on this channel and the podcast before, that to do those things. And that's why you want to output towards SketchUp at times. That's why this is not both way arrow. It's just going and feeding that information onto SketchUp side from
Yeah.
Revit. So that's what I'm doing. And bidding honestly happens mostly on Revit side, as it has the construction docs and all the quantified information. So solely focuses on Revit in that case. Although SketchUp can do it, it's just a bit more effort is needs to be put in there. And then construction admin, I also have benefited from the ability of SketchUp to mock up something very, very quickly. It's if you
Mm-hmm.
want like a wall section drawn up in 3D, and just the layering of and how the corner meets. In SketchUp, is a lot easier to go boop 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 and then just
So
get the
valid.
general idea, and then even hold a call like this and then have GC see the model, and I just kind of spin around, then they get it immediately. Whereas in Revit, you got to cut the section, you've got to look at it in elevation view, and
Yeah.
no, 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 that's not the real thing. It's just in the view pane, and it's just getting
Yeah.
shown. You got to
Yeah.
hide it, and it's just a lot clunkier in terms
That's
of
so valid.
presentation. Whereas in SketchUp, you can just kind of spin around and orbit it and show it to them and hide certain things to get into further into
Mm-hmm.
the assembly of geometry that you have created. So those things are a lot better on SketchUp side. Therefore, yes, a lot of RFIs can be addressed just on the Revit side, or just the knowledge that the AOR or architect has on it. But sometimes providing further visualization or understanding or explanation of information can be easier on SketchUp side. So it kind of goes back and forth in that regard as well. Anything to add here?
Yeah. I feel like that was a really good one. Because I didn't really think about the RFI portion of that at all, but I do know it is hard for a lot of people, no matter where they work in the industry, out of the industry, to understand 2D to 3D. And so I think that's a really good call out of SketchUp being good about just that quick mock up of the wall. And that can really help describe. And GCs are such a phenomenal asset in helping you understand how things are actually constructed in the real world. And they can sit there and be like, oh, actually, no, no, no. Like, from my experience, this works better. Can we see what that looks like? And you can quickly work with them on that.
Yep. And
Yeah.
the amount of live presentation you do on SketchUp versus
Mm-hmm.
live presentation on Revit. Yes, it is always possible, but it's
Yes.
just not really a thing. The way I kind of describe this kind of tool metaphor is SketchUp is like a screwdriver, and
Mm-hmm.
Revit is like a hammer, or vice versa. But screwdriver is meant for screws, hammer is for nails. Sometimes, when push comes to shove, you are gonna use a screwdriver to hammer the darn thing.
I've done that.
Yeah, or just hammer away the screw into
Yep.
wherever you're trying to hammer it into. But it's just not the tool that is meant for it. You
Mm-hmm.
obviously gonna do it in a lot more elegantly and
Mm-hmm.
in quicker fashion, or in a proper way than the other tools. So it's just a tool. You just got to pick up the tool for the right task, or the task that is meant for it. So yeah, you just got to understand its strength and what it is meant for, and how you can utilize to carry out the task that it has been assigned to you. If your client has forbid you using a hammer and you must use screwdriver or impact to drive in screws into your
Mm-hmm.
project, then you've got to do it. But if you are given a choice, then yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta pick up the tool. Anyways, so I wanted to talk about some other piece. So we have a choice either to go from Revit to SketchUp or SketchUp to Revit. Uh, which one would you like?
I feel like what would be really good first, even though I think I know how to do this one the most, is doing SketchUp to Revit, just to show like the simplicity of that, and then go back, you know, then show the other direction
Right.
because
Well,
It
excellent
probably
choice
does take
because I
collection.
think I have more prepared on SketchUp to
Mhm.
Revit than
You're welcome.
Revit to SketchUp. So thank you. And I know how to do both ways, and I am aware of general workflow as well, in both sides really. But I have just a bit more exciting news on SketchUp to Revit workflow. That's why I was more eager to talk about it. And this was actually part of the conversation, or sorry, the presentation that I did at 3D Basecamp, of this specific workflow going from SketchUp to Revit. So I was a little more prepared on it than the other, although I am aware of both workflows.
Hmm.
Um, so let me go and first bring up this screen. So this is Revit 2021. I hope you don't have to use 2021 at this point, but I'm just using this as an example of what historically was possible in the past and how it has been
Very
improved
cool.
recently.
Hmm.
Um, for those of you who comes from SketchUp side, SketchUp world, just know that the Revit world backsaving is not really a thing, and everybody has to have multiple versions of Revit on their machine to work
Hmm.
with multiple type of projects.
Didn't they used to backsave like way back in the day?
Not from the years that I'm aware of, and this
Okay.
is going all the way back to like Revit 2012. So
Good Lord.
I don't know
Yeah.
when you were born, Mackenzie, but I'm not sure if that was possible in the back. It is possible to export a IFC version, and then
Okay.
import into newer version, or sorry, the older version, because IFCs can be backsaved, but those geometry that comes in through IFC don't behave exactly like native Revit element.
Hmm.
So that still is a workflow. If you accidentally, and you must go back, that is a workflow that still exists, and that's the sort of only way at the moment, that you can bring in newer information into an older version of Revit. And yeah, it just back saving is not really a thing. So in my machine, I have, well, 2021, and I got 2000. I skip. Well, I installed 2021 for this very purpose, presentation purposes. So God, I hope nobody's
The
still
sacrifice.
using this. But the next version I have is 2023, 2024, 2025, all installed on my machine, eating up all of my storage and
Hmm.
resources. And every time you open up your Revit, you've got to make sure you're opening up on the right version as well. Because once you
Yeah.
hit it, then Revit's gonna try to upgrade it. You know the fun thing.
Yeah.
And anybody who's upgrading, or so versioning up the Revit file, to the world who doesn't know this, if you're accidentally upgrading or upping the version of Revit, say, oh, I see 2021 and year 2025 is much greater, so let's go ahead and open this project up on 2025 version of Revit. Once you have crossed that bridge on that file, there's no way coming back. And all of your consultants who's still using the older version is not able to open it up on 2021 version. Everybody now has to move up to 2025. In a big firm that is exchanging information to multiple clients or multiple consultants, this is a big headache. So if you have started this project in year 2021 and it is still going on, then you must stick to this project on 2021 version, unless somebody has made a uh, executive decision to move up to 2022 or 2023. And it is
Hmm.
pretty common practice for firms to keep on using it for past 2 years, for all projects across their firm. So yeah, and I've seen so much as somebody getting fired literally because they accidentally have upgraded it not knowing. I never took a flag, but I have seen people to take an incredible amount of flag for accidentally upgrading some of their yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh, that
so
would be
that's
such a pain.
a huge thing on Revit side. Any Revit users would know this, but for people outside of the world of Revit, this is unheard of, and
Hmm.
all the softwares don't really work that way. So yeah, that's a thing. And SketchUp folks don't need to worry about this because you guys can always back save to older version
Hmm.
of SketchUp. Um, and to add to that, recently on SketchUp, they removed the versioning, meaning even if you go to the save as, um, there's no back saving possible. Now SketchUp is versionless. And I believe this started in 2024, but um, I've looked at this multiple times, even on, say, because I do have SketchUp version 2023. I installed it for this very purpose. Um, but I can't recall for sure. I thought there was a 2023 version of backsaving, but if I go here and try to backsave it, you'll see that you
Hmm.
can backsave it, but only up to 2020 version of SketchUp. Why is this important, however, is because um, it used to be that you were able to backsave. Now you can't backsave versioning. So if I go to something like Revit 2021 version, right? So I start a new project on Revit side. You're seeing this Revit screen, right, Mackenzie?
Yep. Hmm.
All right. So I started a project. Let's look at it here. And then if I decide to, well, you know what? I've got this awesome component on 3D Warehouse. Let's look for something like sofa. And you had you downloaded something, and then that was back saved at 2021 version because why not? Because it's a 2021 version of Revit, right? Or
Yeah.
2020 because I was just a year behind. Let's give Revit a little more extra time there. And if I go insert and if I decide to import that CAD file that I got from SketchUp and try to open this up, and again, I save this SketchUp file in multiple versions for the demonstration purposes. So this is versionless version, and then there's 2013 version, 21 version, 2023 version. So if I go try to import something like 2021 version because it is 2021 Revit, right? At in that year when SketchUp version was 2021 and Revit was 2021, if you go
I feel
and
like you're about to blow my mind or
if I go
something.
open, no, I'm not gonna blow your mind. Just nothing happens, and that's been like that. It in year 2019, 20, 21. If you just try to take current year of SketchUp, Revit never took it. It was not able to bring it in on the most current version of SketchUp. They were always several years behind. That's the one thing. And then it failed to show you any message whatsoever. So if you're a Revit person who doesn't know the world of SketchUp, I'm given a model from client for me to take a look at it on Revit file. Supposedly it says CAD import CAD. SketchUp is CAD apparently. You have CAD, and I take this information. I take everything that I normally do, and I say open. Nothing happens, and it's just a wonderful magic of Revit. So
Yeah.
I have to go and back save SketchUp file, or I have to ask or beg somebody in my firm or my client, can you back save it to previous
Hmm.
versions, something like 2013 version? You gotta, I don't know, feed your coworker a cookie for them to, because I don't have a SketchUp license, because why not
Yeah.
pay extra fee, right? So And you've been in that shoe before.
Yes,
Uh,
you're like throwing me back into some older things right now.
yeah, yeah. So, there's a bit of a close reference here.
Yeah, and it's
But
definitely very embarrassing
y-
to ask your client to back save
yeah,
whenever you're like, I should be able to open this.
yeah.
I should
But
be
I
able to do
can't
this.
as a Revit
Mm-hmm.
user. I don't know darn thing
Mm-hmm.
about SketchUp, and it's not open.
Yeah.
And God, I hope they know that they need to backsave it. Because if
Yeah.
you were just Revit user and bringing in SketchUp file, if you don't know this thing,
Mm-hmm.
then there's not a clue that says you need to backsave it. Like at least
Mm-hmm.
prompt and message say you need to
Yeah,
backsave
you need
it,
at least this.
or
Yeah.
it is unable to import something. The most likely thing for you to do once you have hit the import CAD and then you use the file that client sent to you and open, nothing happens. What I'm gonna do is ZA to zoom extent and try to see, oh, did it come in a completely wrong spot? Am
Yeah,
I
is it super
miles
tiny?
away? Is it
Yeah.
hidden? Now I'm on the whole search for this darn geometry
The
that
item that
okay,
doesn't exist.
and then I'm gonna conclude, well, my client must have sent me an empty model,
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm gonna conclude. That's a logical conclusion because like
Yeah.
nothing's happening. But
Yeah.
no, in fact, it is a back saving, and you gotta do the embarrassing talk and then ask them to save it to 2013 version, and then you do open, and there you go.
Oh my
It
gosh.
just comes in. Or say you were version after because you're working on older projects, so you stayed in 2021 version, but you live in the world year of 2023 or newer version. So let's say you try to bring in 2023 version of SketchUp, nothing happens because it doesn't prompt you
Yeah.
anything. And this used to be the world, the parallel, the universe of Revit, and that's what happened in the past. But in recent years, SketchUp removed the versioning. It's versionless, so it doesn't have any more version. So it hides the version, or it just doesn't have the versioning on the file. Therefore, Revit doesn't care. So in the year 2021 version, right? If I go to import CAD and just get the versionless version of SketchUp file, this is the most current 2024 version. It's just versionless, right? So if I go open and nothing happens because I didn't do it correctly, hold on. So if I go here and I'm going to open this up and then I'm just going to save this over. Yes. And you know what? I may be wrong. So import CAD, it's a versionless version. Nope, it doesn't. Okay, so it doesn't bring it in. So you have to still, on version 2021 version, you have to go back save it to 2013 version in order to bring it into Revit.
No.
Yeah, so that's been a big problem. Whereas in 2021 version, let's open up Revit 2023. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And then, well, this is a versionless version. So my Revit 2023 is opening up for cheers to all Revit folks who always waits on the loading screen.
Yeah, constant.
Whereas in SketchUp,
I feel
things are
like
a
you're
bit
just
more instant, right?
yeah. I
So
feel
I
like
am
you're breaking
comparing the
my
two.
heart right now.
It's still
Just
loading.
yeah.
I haven't done
No,
anything
this
wrong. It's typically this long for just program to load.
yeah. No, this is like truthfully breaking my heart.
Because it's been this way. You
I
always go through
know.
this. So if I start a new file, again, let's do testing. This is live testing.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrong once. Insert,
Only once.
import CAD. Here's a dialog. Let's do, and of course, SketchUp file is CAD. Way to downplay SketchUp, Revit. Obviously, it's going to bring in 2013 version. There you go. If I go back, let's do 2021 version. You're in year 2023. You're ought to work, right? What about 2023 version? Yep. What about version less? Oh, you don't do that. Version less version. So into 2023 version, 2024 version, or version less version is brought in. So at year 2023 now is able to bring in all SketchUp versions. And that's been the case. So because SketchUp decided to remove versioning, Revit is now able to take in even more recent version of SketchUp version in 2024. You don't have to do backsaving.
That's nice.
So that means a few things. First of all, let's say you've got this file. It's a pretty big model. So I've got this master plan model, and let's say my building is this one. You got consultant who's a landscape architect who's working on this landscape and the city context and building context is a separate thing, and then they're also working on some of landscapey things and outside of the building specific thing. And now that we got the concept done and everything, now we want to move on to construction docs on Revit side. So we want to start creating the parallel universe on Revit side. And it's typical that you, like I said, construction docs on building, but your building context or your landscape design or your roof design may need to be separate so that you can carry out different design studies. So in this case, I have a roof separate so that I can carry on studying on that, and also the context separate. So how about we bring in the entire thing onto Revit side, like import this. So let's go ahead and open up 2014 version because that's the most used version. And sorry, it's going to take a little bit for it to open as well. Yeah. Cheers to all the people.
I didn't realize that was the most used version.
What, 2024?
Oh, I heard 2014. I sat there and I was like, wow, what an odd year to continue to use.
Wait, what do you mean most? Sorry, 2024 is the most used at the moment. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
I heard 14.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I said 14. 2024 version is the most recent and most used at the moment because not a lot of firms have adopted to 25 version because it's likely that they started this project in 2024 and stuck with it rather than upgrading as soon as 25 was available. Yeah. Anyways, I started a new project, and then if I were to decide and bring files in here, I'll go insert, import CAD, and then I'm going to try to find this darn project on my folder. It's in here. So, sorry. And then I got to choose SketchUp file again. And then rather than importing, I would actually link. Now, for those of you who are SketchUp side people, SketchUp universe side people, link versus import are two different things on Revit side. So imported, you just bring that in and forget about it. That the path and where the file used to exist. Whereas link it maintains the folder path and the linkage to the file. Therefore, once the file has been updated, meaning your designs have changed or somebody touched on it to make an improvement or revision or such things like that, then you have an option to reload, which is update of the file that exists on your model so that it just applies all of those changes that's been made. And this is pretty good practice when it comes to overall master plan or some of, and it goes the same for Revit links, or, but you can do that for all of your CAD file, including because Revit categorized SketchUp file as a CAD file. So because I want to maintain this linkage between my file, SketchUp file, and Revit backdrop, I would like to link this as opposed to importing. And linking CAD is right here, link CAD. And then I'm going to go to the same folder, same practice. It behaves exactly the same. And again, if I had done linking for previous version of Revit, it would have failed. So here I can go to, let's say, the mall master. If I were to go master, open, it's going to take a little bit for it to process the stuff, given that this is pretty big, and it's going to it's going to have to translate all of those information, but bring that in. So it's going to do that. One thing I can do is I can actually save this building out as a separate element, or save out this the landscape model as a separate thing. So I'm gonna do, because this is a component, I can right click it as I highlight it, save as, and I can save it out to say this is a site model. So save that out, and then I can also save out the building. So this is a building, and
That's
then
pretty simple.
this is save as the roof. There is a bit of a play that you have to do in order to make sure the origin is kept the same. Origin keeping is a little bit convoluted, not difficult, but a bit convoluted. Not a lot of people it knows how to play with the origin, but here this is a master model that has been brought in, and it's being clipped. On Revit side, there's something called crop region, so that is being used. That's why you can see the crop region here, and then also by default the scope box is also on. That's why it's being cropped. But if I undo that, then it's going to show all the information. And also if I go to 3D view, it's going to show you the 3D view here. And you can see on the plan, if I go to reset hide RH, then it's going to show you the origin. And I have mentioned this to you before, Mackenzie.
Yep.
This
Yesterday?
site origin is very, very important for site coordination, just on Revit side for Revit links and everything. But because on SketchUp side, you can see this blue, green, red SketchUp world origin is on the same spot. It is going to respect that. Basically, that's where everything is going to match. So even though we have this multi-universe, parallel universe, you have this one axis or origin where everything is kept aligned from. So that's a very important fact. And then also, so on top of this, I'm going to try to bring in the roof. So for example, if I were to go out here, and then I'm going to link. So because this is a CAD link, also I'm going to bring in just a roof only, just for the proof of concept. Let's bring in the building context. So I'm going to go to the desktop, which I had saved out, which is this one here, site, which includes the context and the landscape design that is continuously moving, right? So once I bring that in, give it a moment. The original model, unsupported geometric. So there are some elements that are not being brought in. That's okay, because it gave me a prompt, gave me an idea that things may not be correct. Thank you. You mentioned it for the first time. So this was a master. I'm gonna hide this one, and this was my context basically.
Yeah.
So it brought in on the same exact spot because it used the same origin, and then also now I can go back in here to the plan, and because if I delete or I can't delete pinned object. If I were to
Oh, that's perfect.
delete, come on, master. No, okay. It's still spinning. All right, delete. There you
Yeah.
go. The context is still there, as you can see here, which is pinned. But now I can go about actually making the wall on here to make the actual building in here. So at that point, I can start to actually have the building context model that's coming from SketchUp side and then actually show on Revit side. So you can see how that starts to become, okay, well, then my landscape designer decided to, well, you know what? He opened up the site model. And I'm going to just match up. And all of these geometry like snap because it's an actual geometry. So it is able to trace or snap, which is a great thing. So you can actually place all of these things in a correct spot. So I can align this. Come on. There you go. And then, like I said, you can assign different heights, right?
Yeah.
So you can start to kind of mass your building here. But this is a site context model, which is currently linked into. And then if I were to go ahead and, well, you know what? I want these tables and share set out on this spot too. So if I were to just plaster these over this area, you see how easy that was? And
Perfect.
then if I do, maybe I want a mountain here. So I'm just going to push pull. Whether this is a wall versus a floor, not sure. You need to make that decision on the Revit side, but you don't have to on the SketchUp side. And then if I save this over, I just saved it. I don't need to back save it. That's a huge thing. I don't need to back save or separate out a file,
Yeah.
which used to be a thing for you to coordinate the parallel universe. Whereas now that's not a thing anymore because the most recent version of SketchUp is now read on Revit without a message and also actually brought in. So now I can just highlight this and then, sorry, I don't have to highlight it. I just need to go to the Manage Links section, CAD formats here. If I were to go and I want you to look here, if everything goes right, as I hit
Magic.
reload, it is going to reload there. Just thinking a little bit.
I'm pretty excited about this though.
Yeah, so like you can have geometry that comes in there on the spot. What happened? I was just thinking. Okay,
There it
there you
is.
go. So yeah, so it brought in this wall that I created, and it's in there too. And if you look at this visibility graphics overrides, imported categories, there are layers that has come in. And then those are the layers or tags. We discussed this before, but those are the same structure here. So you can actually control these. So, for example, furnitures and trees, if I were to untick those things go away. And it controls exactly how it is behaved on SketchUp side too. So there's a visibility control as well. But you can continue to
Nice.
work on the model and then have it show correctly as your backdrop on your plans. Hey, these are my site plans. And on this plan, I don't want to show all the trees that are not looking correct because on SketchUp side, these don't have any thicknesses, right? So all the imported categories, I don't want to show furnitures or trees or not the grid lines, then okay that, and they go away. And also on 3D, you can actually have colors or show the colors because those colors do come in here too. Not
That's so
the
nice.
correct material, but those things do come in. So they're a pretty good representation of what you intended to show on SketchUp side. So this information exchange becomes a lot easier. Now you can carry out your roof studies separate and make sure, because this kind of roof that I had on here is not as easy to make on the Revit side. Whereas in
Mm-hmm.
SketchUp, it may be slightly easier as long as you're aware of the process. So LinkCAD, and then whilst I'm working away my building construction docs, I can bring in the roof, and the roof is there.
That's cool.
So as they make modification to the roof model, this will just be the fine backdrop, or maybe if you have a site plan or elevation or roof plan, it'll show up correctly.
That's great.
So that's how you bring that in. And I know we've completely gone over our time here, but also we can discuss about the other piece there. And then let's see here. Yeah, so we gone from SketchUp to Revit, but also there's a bit of 3D warehouse to Revit side that I will also like to talk about. So we perhaps continue this conversation next week.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, because I think this is a great conversation and a great asset for people to understand all of the capabilities for both and how they can connect.
Yep,
That cohesion you were talking about earlier.
yep, yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, with that, we'll close it here and perhaps to continue the conversation in next week, same time. And thank you so much for everyone joining, listening in, and also watching this on recording. If you have any questions or further clarification that you would like to have on certain matters that we have discussed today, please feel free to chat or leave comments. We'll be able to answer those in perhaps in the future sessions or on the comments as well. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.